Hello, I'm Matt Reardon, and thanks for watching this Wednesday evening, February 15th, West weather update from Nutrien Ag Solutions. Today we are starting with yesterday. These are the wind gusts from yesterday afternoon. That was Tuesday, February 14th. Valentine's Day, we had a strong cold front come through the southwest, the Central Valley of California. Saw blowing dust, 30, 35 mile an hour wind gusts at some of the strongest areas. Las Vegas saw blowing dust come through in the afternoon when this front moved in, and then temperatures started to drop. I think that's the bigger story here is we saw low temperatures here Wednesday morning, low temperatures expected again in the Central Valley and parts of Arizona and Southern California tomorrow morning. Las Vegas actually recorded a snowfall observation at their airport briefly yesterday evening, which is, as you'd imagine, pretty rare, certainly for Las Vegas, even in February. If we jump over, look a little bit closer at the all hazards map from NOAA, valid as of this evening on Wednesday here. Freeze warnings, this dark blue color through the Central Valley, those will continue into Thursday morning. And then even over in some of these coastal regions as well, freeze watches, freeze warnings a little bit further north. If we look down to Arizona, freeze warnings even all the way through here. Imperial County of California included in some of these. Yuma has been excluded as of now. Temperatures not expected to get all the way down to freezing in some of the Yuma areas. And then the winds have really moved off to the southeast, at least as far as the west is concerned, so New Mexico and West Texas. If we double back and look at Wednesday morning lows from the National Weather Service, we saw Hanford, Visalia, Route 99, saw some of the coldest temperatures overnight as of Wednesday morning, even up into Merced, 30 degrees Fahrenheit. So we went further west, further to the northwest, temperatures not quite as cold, not lingering down in kind of those concerning 28 degree Fahrenheit range, fairly warm along the coast. But going into tomorrow, Thursday morning, I think things are a little bit warmer, but we're talking about going from maybe a 28 degree overnight low to a 29 degree overnight low in somewhere like Hanford or Visalia. Delano still expected to drop near 28, Porterville 32 degrees. Last night we didn't see temperatures linger too long around that 28 to 27 degree Fahrenheit zone. If they got down that far, it was really only for an hour or two, so I don't think we've seen something as serious hard freeze yet. But again, these forecasts for temperatures can be difficult overnight, so it's still something we're a little bit concerned about for Thursday morning. Some of these coastal temperatures actually quite a bit lower. Santa Maria, 31 degrees Fahrenheit tomorrow morning versus this morning, warmer up at 34 degrees. So keep an eye on this tomorrow. Again, I doubt we're going to see anything where we're prolonged hours below 28 degrees Fahrenheit, but just given we're kind of in that concerning zone, I thought it was something I wanted to touch on. Jumping down to the southwest area, again, Imperial County of California, growing regions down here, freeze warning expected. The low temperatures forecast right now for Thursday morning are around 32, 31 degrees Fahrenheit for this area, so not expecting something like a 27 degree Fahrenheit, 28 degree Fahrenheit hard freeze. That's where these hard freeze warnings are out in some of these upper elevations here throughout Arizona. But areas lower along the river, again, closer, I think, to 31, 32 degrees Fahrenheit with Yuma excluded, as I mentioned a slide before. If we take a step back and look at precipitation over the last 7 days across the west, we kind of continued that drier pattern we talked about in the last video. We have seen some precipitation come through. Saw some light rain move through the southwest that we just looked at yesterday. But really it's been rather dry through the Central Valley of California, the Sierra Nevada, up through parts of Oregon, the Willamette Valley, even including parts of Washington and Oregon. If we look at snowfall over that same time period, the last 5 days or so, we had another shot of snow come through the Pacific Northwest, upper elevations in Oregon and Washington. Not much through the Sierras. This was somewhat expected with some of these weaker events coming through, and not much through the Intermountain West, save perhaps for parts of the upper Colorado River Valley, which got a nice top off for their snow with some of these storm systems that came through. We're keeping an eye on this long term. We've seen this year go fairly well again through parts of the Central Valley of California, extending east into the Sierra Nevada, western Nevada growing regions doing quite well, and then these upper elevations with higher snowpack. Anywhere where we're dark blue, we're 200% for snow water equivalent. But we have that same story where as we extend further north, our values go to normal and then below normal in Washington, northern Idaho, western Montana. So we have room to improve here. We even really, as I've mentioned, have room to improve in California. Nevada and the upper Colorado River Basin is wet and snowy as it's been. The drought that we were coming out of was strong enough. I'd like to see some of these snowpack and snow water equivalents improve as we go through the month of March, which is typically for the West one of our more bountiful months in terms of precip and snowfall. Jumping over and looking at the forecast here for the West over, say, the next 10 days or so, I'll start just walking through this. As we get toward the weekend, there's really not much to see. That system is now ejected off into the central part of the country, the one that came through on Valentine's Day afternoon. We see a weak system come through Washington on Friday. We really don't see the next big precip snowmaker come through until Sunday evening. See that digging into parts of Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming. But the one I'm more interested in, at least right now, is if all the way into Tuesday, this is February 21st, we can see something coming onto the coastline there, a low pressure system coming into Washington, Oregon, amplifying a bit. This has the potential to be a more serious precipitation maker, I think certainly for the Northwest. You'll notice as I step through Tuesday, now we're getting more serious snowfall into eastern Washington, the upper elevations of Idaho, northern California. And then while we are all the way out into next week here, curiously, if we step this just through the next few days, we see it linger off the west coast of the United States and start to bring itself south down the coastline to the point where by the end of the week, now we're starting to focus some precipitation and snowfall, not only on coastal parts of California, getting perhaps some showers into the Central Valley, but perhaps more significantly, more snowfall for this year in Nevada. We've been kind of watching for some late February precip and snowfall chances to return to California. I think we're seeing some of that here, and it will depend on how this storm, I think, orients itself late next week to see if we can focus some of this precip there on the higher elevations. The GFS has been similar to this. I won't walk you through that one right now, but it's coming into agreement, I think, with the ECMWF on these storm systems, not only the one that we're seeing Sunday night coming through parts of Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming, but again, I think the more potent one to watch is the one potentially coming midweek for parts of Washington and Oregon, and then lingering down the coastline, focusing itself more on parts of Central California. We'll keep an eye on this. If you look at snowfall forecast totals from the ECMWF over the same time period, next 10 days, valid as of Saturday, February 25th. You can see more snow moving into parts of the Intermountain West. Idaho gets another good shot of snowfall. Montana, higher values, certainly in the upper elevations of the Cascades. And the Sierra Nevada getting a nice additional boost of snowfall here. Not anything I think to write home about, but certainly snowfall will take as the storm system tries to focus itself on California later in that forecast time period. If we look at the precipitation anomalies over that same time period, it's not really a surprise that that Monday night storm and then that Wednesday night one that amplifies really brings a lot more snow to parts of the Intermountain West, Utah, Idaho, Montana, parts of eastern Washington, the elevations of the Cascades. Northern California missing out on some of this precip, at least for this individual model run here, closer to average values through perhaps the central Sierra Nevadas and south. This is a rainy, snowy time of year for California, so it takes a number of systems to get close to normal, or then even exceed that on this specific color bar here, given that it's an anomaly. But I think it is good news, certainly for the northern Intermountain West, where we are lacking our snowpack, at least right now in 2023. If we look at the 6-day precipitation totals from the CPC, their forecast, I think we can see, again, that agreement of Intermountain West, northern Intermountain West snowfall and precipitation coming in that 6 to 10 day window, again, February 20th through the 24th. So midweek, next week, early to midweek. If we look out 8 to 14 days, February 22nd through the 28th, we can see, again, that shift of this low lingering off the California coastline, helping to focus some precipitation more over the Sierra Nevadas and perhaps western and central Nevada as well. So we'll be keeping an eye on this. Again, 8 to 14 days out, our forecast confidence drops a bit at this range, but given that the ECMWF and the GFS are in agreement here, I'm pretty confident, at least right now, in some of these precipitation forecasts for parts of California. I think if we ask ourselves, why are we seeing this shift toward more precipitation for Central California as we get into the forecast time period, it helps to go look at the Pacific jet stream. This is something we kind of key in on when we see or are looking for pattern shifts in California and the West Coast. This forecast of a jet stream valid here as of Monday, February 20th, so a few days out from now. We see a big ridge over the Gulf of Alaska that's helping to bring some of these storm systems as we watch through Idaho, Montana, helping some of the snowpack here in the northern Intermountain West. But if I play this quickly through the next 5 days or so, this is out into next week, and keep an eye on that ridge over the Gulf of Alaska. You'll notice Wednesday into Thursday, it breaks down a bit. We're seeing an amplification associated with a strengthening low pressure system out in the western Pacific that's helping to back this ridge over Alaska proper, and that's changing the orientation of the jet stream. Now the winds are coming more out of the west or southwest than the northwest, which is what brought that snow into the Intermountain West. As we shift the orientation of this jet stream, let's go out through Wednesday, Thursday, getting into Friday now. Now we see a jet stream coming into California oriented out of the southwest. We've mentioned before, and these storm systems coming out of the northwest tend to have less precipitation. Absolutely. The ones coming out of the southwest or the west, like we saw at the end of the week here, tend to carry more precipitation associated with them, specifically for California, Arizona, or parts of Nevada. So this is a transition we're watching closely. If we can get this jet stream oriented this way, we could see more precip at the end of this forecast period, that 8 to 14 day window that we talked about. If we're trying to look at what's going on here, big picture, I think we have to jump back to the MJO, that's the Madden-Julian oscillation. We look at this to get an idea of what that jet stream might be doing, again, in that 2 to 3 week, maybe 8 to 14 day and beyond time range. Last time we talked, we noted it was moving quickly through the maritime continent, coming into phase 6 and 7, crossing the Pacific as it's expected to do over the next few days. Eventually next week, it's parking itself in phase 8. We've talked about how phase 8 tends to promote precipitation chances in California by extending that Pacific jet stream. Well, what we saw wasn't really an extension of the Pacific jet stream. It was more of kind of a reorientation of how it was coming on shore. If I just take you back and look, we certainly don't see one of these big Pacific jet extensions coming from Japan all the way across the Pacific into the West Coast. It's still something of a split flow-like regime. We're just getting a better orientation of it just as it impacts the West Coast of the United States. I think we can kind of see what's going on here if we take a look at this Havmuller diagram. There's a lot going on here. It's a pretty ridiculous graphic, if I'm being honest. What I'll clue you in on is this green area here. This tells us where the MJO very likely is. And at least over the last 30 days or so, it has been in this phase 3 area. Over the western Indonesia, we call that the maritime continent. If we jump back and look at the MJO chart here for January and February, there's phase 3. That's where it's kind of been stuck in over the last 3 weeks or so. Only recently did it race itself across and get into the Pacific Ocean. And we can see that right here, as it's quickly racing across the Pacific Ocean. That's where that lines up longitudinally. It's racing itself across here into phase 8, but our thinking is this is too quick to really have an extension on that Pacific jet stream. It might even be something called a convectively coupled Kelvin wave, which might be something even separate from the MJO. It's something of a research topic for us as we go forward throughout the year. But if you look here, these green values, that MJO is trying to re-emerge in that same phase that it was earlier in January and early February, right in this phase 3 region. So while it kind of faked us out a bit by racing across the Pacific, it really wants to reestablish itself, I think, in phase 3. And that gives us a better idea of what kind of jet stream pattern or precipitation pattern we might be dealing with just in the later reaches of February or early March. If we look at phase 3 jet stream patterns typical for March and a La Nina season like we're in now, we get something of a ridge over Alaska like we saw, and that trough lingering off the west coast of the United States, reorienting that jet stream, again, more west to east into parts of California. I think that would increase precipitation chances for late February, early March for parts of California. It's not going to be your big bountiful event like we saw in early January because we don't see this extension of the Pacific jet, maybe from Japan all the way across to California, but it is another way that we can get some precip into the area, albeit not quite as much. If you look at the ECMWF ensemble forecast valid at the end of the period, this is the 7-day forecast, really at the end of February going into early part of March. We can see agreement there, at least from the ECMW ensemble ran today here. California, expected to be above average for the end of February, early March. That extends up into maybe parts of Oregon, into Nevada as well. If we look instead out at the ECMWF monthly forecast, this is looking from February 25th all the way out to March 25th. We just looked at the ensemble focusing kind of on the end of February, end of February, early March. This looking, again, more at the whole month of March here. We see, I think, something of a disagreement, certainly, where we saw that bullseye over California before. Now we see a relative lack of precipitation forecast for parts of California, parts of Nevada, and Arizona. Instead, this precipitation axis has been shifted up into the Pacific Northwest. I think there's some disagreement there on what we just looked at, which was a rainier period perhaps to start the month of March for California. I'm not saying this couldn't happen, but sometimes these monthly forecasts being so long range, they tend to get stuck kind of in their initialized conditions, or they're more biased toward the early part of their forecast, which over the next 5 to 7 days before that pattern shift is a bit drier for California. Another thing we might be seeing here is this monthly model run was initialized a few days ago, February 13th, whereas that ensemble I just showed you was initialized today, February 15th. So perhaps it's something where as these models are updated, it will shift more in line with that ensemble forecast we're seeing. But it is some variability. It's a conflict in the models. We note that as something that might lower our forecast confidence. It wouldn't shock me that after that kind of early wet period in March that we're seeing, we shifted drier in parts of California. We still kind of have that background La Nina phase that we're in, which can dry things out in California in spring. So it's possible. I thought I'd show you all solutions here. If we change gears a bit here and look at temperatures over the next 10 days for the West, you're looking at the 10-day temperature anomalies for the western part of the United States. Certainly on the colder side of things, we're continuing this kind of very cold winter we've been dealing with as a result of, again, a lot of those cold fronts that have come through. The precipitation and the snow has brought temperatures down. The good news is for parts of the Central Valley or the Southwest, while we're cold to start the day tomorrow on Thursday, we begin the warm-up trend after that going through the weekend and the early part of next week. I think when those systems come in, that pattern shifts mid to late week next week, we bring those temperatures back down. That's what's making this 10-day forecast anomaly look as cold as it is. As far as freeze watches and warnings in the Central Valley and the Southwest, I'm less concerned about that next week, just given some of the precipitation in the area might keep temperatures up a bit in terms of those overnight lows. I can't rule out, another freeze warning or a frost watch. Certainly, if anywhere I'm more concerned about cold temperatures, it would be the Willamette Valley. As we get that jet stream shifting and that trough moving in like this, that puts the Willamette Valley under the gun for some seriously cold temperatures. We might be talking well below freezing for some areas there. We'll keep an eye on that as we get into next week. If we ask the Climate Prediction Center what it thinks for temperatures over the next 8 to 14 day time period, agreement on what we just saw from the ECMWF in terms of their 10-day anomaly. Colder, certainly in the Pacific Northwest. Again, I mentioned the Willamette Valley, perhaps part of the northern part of California, and then lesser so moving south from there. I think what you can also see in some of this temperature outlook here is the shape of that jet stream reorient itself out of the west, coming through the central United States. Again, coinciding with that pattern shift, we're expecting mid to late next week to end the month of February. If we look big picture at the drought situation across the West, we've seen incremental improvement in this over the last few weeks. This map valid as of February 9th, so last Thursday. The new map will come out tomorrow morning, February 16th. I did want to point out one area. If you can see this little yellow sliver here in the Central Valley of California, that's one area where we have officially and finally been removed from drought status. So going from moderate drought to abnormally dry, fortunately. Small victory, I suppose, but I am expecting more of those as they account for some of the recent precipitation here. I have been greedy at times, looking to improve even on a lot of the water and the snowpack that we've had this winter. Just, again, to help us get out of that severe multi-year drought we saw in 21 and 22. But if we look kind of wholesale at the winter, the last 12 weeks or the 3 months here, the drought situation has improved quite a bit. This is areas in green here where we have removed from drought status. The darker the green, the more classifications we've removed. So California having a good winter, certainly Nevada, Washington, parts of Arizona, Utah, even beyond there as well. So the situation has been good. It's been positive. One area that has unfortunately, I think, seen too much water, we talked about this at the end of January, is the state of Hawaii. They had flooding come through at the end of January. The pattern has been conducive for more rainfall, unfortunately for February as well, and flood watches have been issued for virtually the entire state of Hawaii here to end of the week. More precipitation expected Thursday and Friday and potentially into mid to late next week as well. If I take you back to the Pacific jet stream, I think you can see the reason for some of this. There is this split in the jet stream flow in the West Pacific, and it has allowed this southern branch or the subtropical extension of the jet to focus itself really right on the state of Hawaii that's helping to bring moisture in and rainfall, which has exacerbated the flooding situation out there. They're expecting this sort of pattern to continue through the weekend with a lot of strong rains coming into the area, and then potentially another episode of this going into mid-week next week, but we'll keep an eye on that. That is all I have for you guys for this evening. Thanks for watching.